Lester, Wushu Engineer. Sorry about the long wait for the follow-up to the Tonfa Part 1 video. There have been a few things on my plate recently, not the least of which is actually a new and quite complex weapon build for the channel. If you're seeing this video and you've not yet watched my Tonfa Part 1 video, I recommend that you watch Part 1 before continuing with this video to enable you to get the context for this video. I'll not be getting into any kind of discussion or setting any kind of contextual background to this video, and I'm instead going to go straight into discussing the tests performed. I performed a total of 7 strikes using the Tonfa, as well as 7 strikes each for both the Nunchaku and the Flute, or simple stick, for comparative purposes. We performed the tests using our impulse block equipment and methodology that allows for one of the most comprehensive striking analyses available currently to our knowledge. In a nutshell, the impulse block equipment consists of a specially designed foam spring called the impulse block attached to the front plate of a load cell that records force input at a sampling rate of approximately 1 kHz, along with a laser photogate timer that allows the measurement of time of flight in microseconds across a 1 centimeter gap just prior to impact with the impulse block. Using the measured values of force over time and the time of flight of the impacting object just prior to impact, it becomes possible to calculate a number of other characteristics associated with the impacting object. These include impulse, or change in momentum imparted by the strike, impact velocity, peak filtered impact force, kinetic energy of the impact, power of the impact, and apparent mass behind the strike. For a more detailed explanation of the impulse block equipment and methodology, see my other videos on the subject. The strikes that I performed were all strikes to the side with the impulse block equipment mounted vertically on a wall. I tried to keep my biomechanical movements similar for all of the strikes in order to keep the tests as objective as possible. However, human variation, and in this case the skill of the human operator, must be accepted, or they should be accepted as limitations of this set of tests. Another limitation is the uniquely different characteristics of the weapons used. For instance, the mass of the Tonfa was 730 grams, the Nunchaku was 614 grams, and the Flute was 792 grams. In addition, the lengths of the weapons varied. The traditional Tonfa is a much shorter weapon than either the Nunchaku or the Flute, with a total length of 48.5 centimeters. When I originally made the Nunchaku and the Flute, I made them to be identical in length. However, the rope used to attach the 2 parts of the Nunchaku together has stretched a bit during use, which has increased the weapon's overall length. The Flute was 75.5 centimeters in length, while the Nunchaku was 77.5 centimeters in length. So these test limitations have to be borne in mind when discussing the results. In addition, we can easily see that the Tonfa is at a bit of a disadvantage compared to the other 2 much longer weapons. Fundamentally, the arc described by each of the weapons when they are used to strike with is a strong determinant of their striking characteristics. Because the human movements used to swing the weapons in the strikes employed in these tests were essentially the same, and the human operator, me, I was the same operator, so I was identical, the main determinant of weapon striking performance would be the radius of the striking arc or rotational length of the weapons. I put together some basic images showing the rotational lengths of the respective weapons. At 38 centimeters, the Tonfa has the shortest rotational length out of all 3 of these weapons. The Flute has a rotational length of 60 centimeters approximately, and the Nunchaku has a rotational length of approximately 65 centimeters, so slightly longer than the Flute. We could thus expect that in at least some respects, the Flute and the Nunchaku would outperform would perform similarly, while the Tonfa could be expected to lag behind a little bit in terms of its performance. I have to apologize for the fact that I was out of the video footage for these tests. We have a large sliding glass door which is located right next to the impulse block setup in our studio. And in this case, getting me in shot would have caused the lighting to make everything else look indistinct or washed out. I'll have to experiment with other camera angles in future in order, try to invest in a removable set of blockout curtains or something of the like. You'll also notice that I wrapped the weapons in foam padding for the tests. This was to protect the equipment from damage due to impact with the weapon edges or corners. So without further ado, and bearing in mind the limitations of the tests, this is what the tests looked like.
Start and zero it. Okay. Okay, that's 815.
And that's 585.
And zero. Okay. Okay, that's 804.
686.
Okay. 778.
570.
Okay.
673.
924.
Last one.
Okay. That was 1208. I think we need to do a few more
719.
because it's going up.
Okay.
Okay.
563.
777. And I think one more we need to see. Okay. 1031.
691. Yeah, I think that. Yeah. Tell me when.
Yep, okay. 711.
667.
Okay. 1052.
569.
782. I don't know if that was a valid one or not.
619. Yeah. That was.
Okay, 1034.
528. 481. That's pretty good.
1016.
Might do one more.
Yep.
530. Yeah. You get it? No. 540.
915.
558.
1048.
565.
973.
526.
1053. 2.
Four.
9, 3, 7.
Maybe one more.
Yeah. Okay.
530.
950.
After processing the data, the results were calculated and tabulated. I'll have them displayed on the screen during this discussion. As you can see from the results for the Nunchaku and the Flute, they were very similar to those achieved in my Nunchaku versus stick video, but there was a noticeable decrease in overall performance for this set of tests. This could be due to several factors. Firstly, it could simply be due to my natural human performance variation. However, the previous set of tests were also performed using downward over-shoulder strikes, which benefit, of course, from the acceleration due to gravity. So this could have been a factor in the variance noted between the two sets of tests using the Nunchaku and the Flute. As noted in the previous tests, the Nunchaku and the Flute's performance are quite similar in many regards, but the Flute did outperform the Nunchaku on average. However, despite the fact that the Flute did outperform the Nunchaku, it should still be borne in mind that the results for these two weapons were very close, leading to the Nunchaku marginally outperforming the Flute in terms of impact velocity and power in the previous set of tests performed in the Nunchaku versus stick video. As predicted though, the Tonfa lagged behind the other two weapons in terms of its average performance. This is most clearly seen in the lower impact velocity and thus kinetic energy. However, a very interesting and significant trend was that despite its overall performance being lower than the other two weapons, the apparent mass that I could channel through this weapon into the strikes was surprisingly much higher than that of the other two weapons. This could be an interesting and unpredicted result of its shorter length. Because the point of force application is closer to my body's core, due to the shorter weapon length, it could be easier for me to apply torque and generate greater apparent mass behind the weapon's strikes. An alternative explanation could be that the mechanics of the right-angled Tonfa grip could facilitate a more effective transfer of impact force from the human operator and thus improve impulse and apparent mass. You will note that one of the Tonfa's strikes significantly outperformed the other two weapons in terms of apparent mass, impulse, peak filtered force, and power. This was clearly a strike in which my movement and connection through the weapon was superior to my other strikes. This highlights the impact that human performance variation and human skill plays in these kinds of tests. Now, I've had some viewers on my channel suggesting elimination of the human element completely from these tests through the use of machines to perform strikes and other attacks with the respective weapons. Now, that's actually not my interest. My primary interest is not in whether a weapon arbitrarily on its own is better than another weapon, but rather whether a human operator wielding said weapon can perform better than a human operator wielding another weapon, or the same human operator wielding another weapon. I do not agree with the approach of eliminating the human operator, because ultimately a test of a weapon's performance should not be a test of the weapon alone, or as wielded by a machine, because weapons do not fight on their own, and a machine's performance with a weapon may vary greatly from that of a human using the same weapon. The tests should instead be tests of the human-weapon relationship. It takes a human operator to use a weapon, and thus eliminating the human operator may provide results that are not actually relevant to a human's use of that particular weapon. Testing a human's use of a weapon gives a far more representative indication of a weapon's performance. Although, And this is the limitation of this approach. Human skill and human performance variation do then become significant influencing factors. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you all again next time. Cheers!